Merry meet. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Angela Warren, Director of Faith Development for this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. I'm joined up front today by our friend Eve Tulbert, and at the piano will be Sonia Jensen-Schell. Throughout the month of December, including the special offering on Christmas Eve, we will be sharing our plate offerings with the Amherst Little Free Pantry. Yes, our Little Free Pantry, the one that was envisioned and created by members and friends of UU Amherst and Congregation Havara. The Amherst Little Free Pantry is one of our most necessary and visible outreach ministries, and it involves a growing team of folks that stock it daily and have done so for 5 years. We will be joined later in the service by Marie Evans, who will tell us more about the pantry's functions and needs. As you came in this morning, you may have noticed the round table with natural elements like stones and cones and fern fronds on it in the back center. This is our morning altar and something we construct together each week. I hope you'll add your creative energy to this moment of beauty. You'll find plenty of natural goodies on the table adjacent to the round one to add to this ephemeral creation. As always, this is an adding to, not a correction of. So please leave the wonders that have already been added in place and add your own embellishments. As Unitarian Universalists, we are the people of the wide path, engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning and coming together to make a difference. We're so glad you have chosen to be here, virtually and in person. Our Soul Matters theme for December is wonder, and today we'll explore the wonder of the peaceful ecology in our backyard and how we have come to be stewards of this place we call UU Amherst. For those gathered in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on reverence mode. Please either put your phones on airplane mode or turn them off completely to avoid Wi-Fi challenges and avoid ringtone and notification distractions from being part of the service. We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will be with one another. Please join me as we affirm the sacred promises we have pledged with our congregational covenant. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. Our chalice lighting today comes from a book by Victoria Loers that some of us studied with Reverend Mark Chafin last year. From Church of the Wild, How Nature Invites Us into the Sacred. Though we're not outside today, it's pretty cold, the design of our sanctuary with its windows all around and up and down allows us to see and to be part of the outside, even as we are sheltered. This is Victoria Loers. We aren't just meeting in nature, we are entering into relationship with nature. We are here to remember ourselves back to where we belong. We are here as an expression of religion, which means again, and ligio, connection. Like ligaments that hold the bones of the world together, religion simply means reconnection. We are here to restore a loving and kindred relationship with the rest of the natural world as spiritual practice. In gratitude for this religion, for the connectivity of all things, we'll sing a song of intention We give thanks. It is number 1010 in our teal hymnal, and the words will be projected on the screen.
That our church is built on land that was once nurtured and cherished by the First Nations people of this region. The Haudenosaunee and the people known as the Neutrals before them. We offer this libation as our giveaway, a symbol of respect for and deep connection with the land. May we be good stewards of the land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. Each of us carries with us into this time cares and concerns, joys and sorrows, and together we create the container where we can put down our burdens, knowing that they are held gently by this gathered community. For those joining virtually, I invite you to give voice to that which is on your heart. Tell the people you are with or use the live chat to engage the gathered community. For those here in the chapel, I invite you now to come forward and place a stone or shell on the table labyrinth in recognition of that which is on your heart.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak. Her sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain. Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain.
My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity.
I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rush washing on a far distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land.
UU Amherst is not just a building. We belong to 11 acres that was nurtured by the first peoples of this continent. Then it came to be adjacent to the common grazing lands of early colonizers. Now comes the time for this land to be nurtured and cherished by this congregation. What are we doing here? Over the years, the W. Waterhouse Ecology Center was named to honor the memory of Reverend Waterhouse's daughter who died in a car accident while he was our minister. The Ecology Center has wooded trails, 3 labyrinths, a fire pit for celebrating the Earth's holidays, and a shelter for fellowship and education. Over the years, the space has become overrun with invasive species. And in the most recent past, we've had a lot of help removing these species and inviting nature and food plants back. Just opening up the space to the light is an invitation. Between humans with hand tools and power tools, and goats with their powerful teeth, hooves, and jaws, we have welcomed back the light. As we continue to take part in this welcoming, we can intentionally choose plants that have been missing, as well as food and medicinal plants. I look forward to continuing in the restoration of these 11 acres with you for as long as we are privileged to belong here. And now, let's sing about some of these species we can find in this place we called UU Amherst. We're going to have a little fun with a call and response song, and this is not a test, okay? You're not going to test on bare twigs what the species are and all that. And I will tell you, let me switch my mic here, that what you see on the table here is a teeny tiny fraction of the species that we have on our 11 acres, like just a teeny tiny fraction. Eve is an educator at U of R and other places and is very much interested and enthusiastic about helping us identify what is here and doing a species audit. Is that what it would be called? Yeah. Sometime in the future, and I'm super excited to have someone else that's so enthusiastic about this work. So, in the beginning, we heard the song, Many, Many Pretty Trees, and we're going to do a call and response. I'm going to call out the names of each plant, then we'll pass them around as we sing along. Does that sound okay? Be careful, some of them are prickly, but not too prickly. You're not going to be left with spines in your hands or anything. But I don't know if you Okay, so let's start it off. There are many pretty trees all around the world, many pretty trees all around the world, many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's Mahonia. It's Mahonia. It's Mahonia. It's Mahonia. There are many pretty trees all around the world, many pretty trees all around the world, many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's holly, it's holly, it's holly, it's holly, it's holly, it's holly. There are many pretty trees all around the world, many pretty trees all around the world, Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a white pine. It's a white pine. It's a white pine. It's a white pine. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a red bud. It's a red bud. It's a red bud. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's an elm tree. It's an elm tree. It's an elm. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's holy basil. It's holy basil. It's holy basil. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a bay tree. It's a bay tree. It's a bay. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's broccoli. It's broccoli. It's broccoli. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's milkweed. It's milkweed. It's milkweed. It's milkweed. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's black walnut. It's black walnut. It's black walnut. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now.
That was so fun. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. All right. I take this time to reflect today on the role of ecology in the study of our Unitarian Universalist principles. And so I take this time today to remember some of my own awakening moments in the trees and brambles of this back preserve, where I, as a child, first learned to come to church and enjoy myself among friends. You see, I had been in a difficult childhood with many adverse childhood experiences, as the experts are wont to say. And in school, I was often feeling disconnected and even traversed over, stomped on by everyone else's goals for my intelligence. But there, in this church, outside this church, I learned to appreciate the texture of sticks and branches. I learned to craft gifts from what we found there. I made friends, and some of my fondest memories and delights are their thoughts about this landscape. And there, I learned to see a tree as me. And now, my son gets to experience these fresh and new wonders with his friends too. Also, as a child, I learned from the UU Covenant that we study many religious ideas and texts respectfully, including Buddhist enlightenment and Haudenosaunee moral relatedness. And that was also the time when I first visited the Turtle Museum and learned about a political and ecological confederacy, which we traverse upon when we visit and live in these New York State lands. And I learned that these lands of our church were protected and cared for by the Seneca people within the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and a treaty of a dish with one spoon, and an acknowledgement that we eat through a shared protection of the land. Now, our church has a food pantry, and we grow fresh vegetables to supplement donated foods, so we move in a good direction towards a dish with one spoon. And thank you so much to all of you who serve in our food justice mission. But what also of the trees here in the land around us here at the church? What do we make of them in our ceremony, our talks, our readings, and our ecumenical prayers? How are these lands and these trees a part of that one dish treaty? And what does it mean to care for them responsibly? Where do we plant that tree of peace, and in what way? This is a deep and spiritually connected kind of learning. Now, let me tell you a story of just such learning. We were out in the pasture of our Ecology club a few months ago, reflecting on reflections of ourselves and nature, and Isaac told us that he sees connection with nature also in fire and in the axe, because sometimes to take care of the land, we need to use these tools to hunt or to use fire to improve the healthy tree community. Moreover, Elise revealed that in the midst of these woods, there is a time travel portal. Yes, in the woods, an actual time travel conveyance, she told me, which only children can see and know. I believe it's true, but I didn't look for it being not a child. But I assure you, children are time traveling here in the woods outside of church. And so here today to celebrate and enjoy coming together of we as a church, members in a network, an ecological system, I also want to time travel just a little to times and places where wise teachers have taught us on the nature of trees. Now, please close your eyes and imagine, if you would, for a moment, a beautiful, untouched forest, a virgin wood, pure and pristine. Imagine walking through such a forest. Well, I tricked you, because such a forest does not exist. Sometimes these words, pristine, untouched, they actually trick us out of learning and looking at the history of real land stewardship and indigenous ecological knowledge right here in our land history. In fact, we know from Haudenosaunee history and from the archaeological record, from records in English and French and Moravian of first conquest and missionaries, that these woods were abundant with nuts and fruit trees and community gardens. Why? Because agroforesters have been working on them for a long time, for millennia. Now, what is that? Agroforestry. It's protecting and managing trees as food sources, and doing this within a framework of Haudenosaunee treaty principles and traditional ecological knowledge means acknowledging the intimate relationships between humans, plants, and wild game. Now imagine this. A family of wild turkey walk together across a stand of oak trees, eating and pecking at acorns as they go. And as they go, they take care of the acorns, making little holes in the ground with their beaks, planting new seeds. Do you see how wonderful that meal of great thanks and gratitude can honor all of these relationships? Because the tree, the foraging family, are in one dish, one dinner bowl. What can we learn by simply honoring and watching? And now we know through archaeological science and oral history together that these relationships were here in the Confederacy managed through ecological action and right-hearted prayer. We know through science that nut trees would not be nearly as abundant as they are here, acorn, hickory, black walnut, if it weren't for these agroforesters harvesting together, roasting nuts in shared pits, having fun cook-offs and gatherings around this delicious food. Recently, in a talk about indigenous agroforestry on Haudenosaunee lands, Abraham Francis, a member of the Mohawk community doing action research and environmental justice, explained this more about the one dish, one spoon commitment. Human action in these ecological relationships must be managed through commitments to underlying principles, healthy human families, matriarchal governance, and the good population health of the species around us over time, within a framework of acknowledging that people create themselves with the land. And some scholars have noted that these agroforestry practices have formed not pristine woods, I tricked ya, but cultural landscapes, rich ecological spaces integrated with human community. So where do these principles come from? And this is from Mr. Francis's research among the Mohawk. Where do these principles come from? Not only from nature itself, but the realization of one mind in one dish. Those teachers, those culture bearers who walk these lands before us, Hiawatha, the great peacemaker, Jingonosase, they formed an allegiance to bring about an enduring peace treaty lasting across wars and borders, set on a just framework for co-managing the land. And what did they do, these foundational characters in history in the years 1100s, it is said? They sought to communicate a new way of life where values could be shared across tribes and violence and conflict could be reduced through sharing trees and wood fuel, living collaboratively, honoring the moral principles of one dish. And they wrote rhymes and beautiful songs to clarify these new ideas. And they acted on nature through providing counseling, help, and support to the biggest tough guys around. Those people that were picking fights and starting battles, they got healing and love instead in response to anger, in response to stirring up nonsense or trying to pick an unholy fight. This team, Hiawatha, the great peacemaker, these poet warriors committed to human oneness first. They built spaces for dialogue and practice of peace through tending trees. Perhaps these treaty principles we can all abide by in every treaty we make, as we learn them here at church, also through acknowledging and bearing witness to the idea that every person deserves a space for peacemaking practice, a place to sit and congregate in the shady and loving branches of a tall and whispering pine. To do this work, we must think of the complex species relationships that have changed the world since conquest, and this is called the Columbian Exchange. Oh, I also realized I missed reading something that I wanted to read, that these relationships were founded on a grounding in a moral relatedness. And so these are the principles of the great law, requiring us all to cultivate peace, power, and a good mind. I want to read a section of the English translation of a Mohawk and Haudenosaunee meeting prayer, which is said to convene discourse on community and ecology. I will give thanks to the Creator for the things that go about on the earth. We will make our minds one and give thanks to the people. Now our minds are one. We will make our minds one and give thanks to our mother, the earth. Now our minds are one. We will make our minds one and give thanks to the waters. Now our minds are one. Okay. So, the complex species relationships in our own backyard, and we have to see the challenges. And these are things that our youth ecology club members already knew the first day that we walked together. Okay, so here's an image of the Columbian Exchange and all of the species that have traveled between the New World and the Old World, as they might be called, or this place and that place. And here we see the species that we've begun to document, like the dog strangling vine and the older trees and the native goldenrod. So every day we must consider how one peace pine alone can't build a peace forest, and we must work to create ecological systems in our minds and hearts as well. And so Mr. Francis reminds us that a healthy forest community includes action to gather and harvest, to use wood and nurture plants, to see our role in using fire or an axe or a chainsaw, all to protect a larger good, an ecology of interconnection. To understand that fruitfully and fully, I turn to another wisdom hero, another story that inspires me to meditate and work on my mind, to try to see interconnectedness and to act with a clear and peaceful mind. And that's a story of a person and a tree from faraway India about Shakyamuni Buddha. And this story should shock you. You see, it's about Shakyamuni Buddha, sage of the warrior clan, or the first Buddha, as most of us know him. And even though this kid was born a prince in the midst of wars and statecrafts, all the way in 300 BC or so, he decided to give that all up just to sit beneath a tree and start a peace brigade all the way on the other side of the world. Shakya gave us a wonderful meditation in the form of his life story, on the meditation on the Bodhi tree, a tree of peace, and a shared bowl of gathered rice. One dish. You see, he left worldly robes and the flavors of his castle, his family, because of his great suffering as a warrior prince. Because how can I have a child and concede that its only future could be violence? He wouldn't let it stand. So Shakya left his family and sat beneath a tree for as long as it took to form a new way of thinking, a new kind of mind. He became a new mind. He tried to be an ascetic, a starving monk, but no. He returned to self-knowledge of hunger like every other animal. And he wore a simple robe and ate of rice and milk and sat beneath a tree. Shh. And under the quiet branches of the Bodhi tree, he became all things. A vision of a subjugated lancing lady, a vision of a warrior demon bent on violence, but he cleared them away. Here his mind became the greater self, the tree, the buffalo, the little girl gifting rice, the river, the seed grain sprouting. He realized on being and non-being his own life in action. And he began to organize others into a league of thoughtful beggars who begged for rice and shared rice, all while wandering and reciting poetry on the nature of living and dying. This sage, a friend of all beings, including elephants, realized, not just for himself, but for everyone, to birth a league of sages, a political body, means to seek together compassion, a harmonious meal we can all share. What kind of warrior is that? For thousands of years in many languages, people repeat these stories of Hiawatha, of the Buddha, to honor peace beneath a tree. Now we must come from many voices and points of view and cultural and religious traditions, but we must come to form one mind in one dish for a greater oneness. We ask together now, what of the trees in our backyard? Who do we feed with a great bowl? How do we assist squirrels and sparrows and sumac trees and oak trees and milkweed feeding monarchs? All in the larger story of our church. It's a lot to think about. And it can really overwhelm a person to know what to do about it if it's just one person, like this one person gently reminding us, pick the vegetables at the right times. But it's not just one person who'll figure this out. It's us together as one dish and one spoon. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce one of our pantry team leaders, all-around wonderful woman and shopper for the pantry, to share some words about this vital service.
Good morning. My name's Marie Evans, and I am part of the pantry leadership team. Just to give you a brief history, sometime in the middle of 2016, I shared a Facebook post about a movement to create little free food pantries using the example of little free libraries. The motto of all free pantries is take what you need, leave what you can. The Little Free Pantry movement is a grassroots, crowdsourced solution to local food deficits. Whether a need for food or a need to give, a Little Free Pantry facilitates neighbors helping neighbors, building community. There is no residency requirement, no questions asked, no ID, paperwork, or qualifications necessary. Maria Serrallo saw my post, and she decided to create a Little Free Pantry on our church grounds. She gathered a group of dedicated volunteers, and 2 years of research, planning, and preparation ensued. We needed to get board approval for the project, decide on a location on the church grounds, obtain the physical shelving, check for compliance with town ordinances and health department regulations, decide what food and personal care items we should offer, and develop a plan and recruit volunteers for stocking. The pantry team continues to meet monthly to problem solve. At the suggestion of Yvonne Stocker, Maria successfully applied for a $7,000 ReFLIRT grant from the Network of Religious Communities. ReFLIRT grants are meant to fund new projects and encourage cooperation between religious congregations. We partnered with Congregation Havurah, who meet in our space, as co-sponsors of the initiative, and their members have been gracious, generous donors to this day. Amherst Little Free Pantry opened on our church portico off the driveway on Sunday, September 30th, 2018. Most Little Free Pantries are relatively small, a freestanding box on a post in a yard. Ours filled a donated trio of entertainment center cabinets, originally the largest one outside on the portico and 2 smaller ones in the second coat room off the church foyer. We use a closet just inside the portico entrance as a staging area for restocking daily. We have received grant funding in the years since, especially during 2020, from the Muslim Public Affairs Council, Williamsville Jolly Boys, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, and the Foundation for Jewish Philanthropies. In November 2020, Cheryl Tomasulo wrote a successful proposal for a second ReFLIRT grant, and that is the last time we'll be able to apply to that funding source. We keep no records about users, but we have learned from attending 3 Buffalo homeless conferences and in conversation with users here that they include people of all ages experiencing underemployment, domestic strife, disability or health challenges, and homelessness. People arrive in their personal car, a friend or caregiver's vehicle, by bus, on bicycles, and on foot. Some users are family members or friends or caseworkers who are gathering items for someone else. So our current situation. While the pantry itself is self-serve, it is a daily labor of love to keep it functioning. Our team has grown to 35 people, 12 of whom have weekly duties. A volunteer comes every day to restock from that front hall closet to the portico. They usually find the shelves almost empty. We outgrew our 2 storage cabinets in the shared back coat room and eventually took over the entire room, creating the Pantry Distribution Center, which is full of grocery shelves graciously donated by the Tuckers, and our bulk inventory. 3 times a week, a volunteer moves items from the PDC to the front closet. As usage rises and our grant balances have decreased, we have cut back on the variety of items we provide. Diapers, pet food, and most personal care items like deodorant, shampoo, razors, feminine hygiene products are just too costly for us to purchase any longer. The non-food items that we do regularly stock are can openers, toilet paper, and laundry detergent. We sometimes receive grocery donations or personal care items from individuals or organizations, but we also spend a significant amount of money on basic items that we think have the most nutritional impact: cereal, pasta, tomato sauce, milk, juice, tuna, and vegetables. I shop weekly. I rarely spend over $1.50 for any given item, and I watch for sales and coupons. And yet, To date, this year, since January 1st, I have spent almost $4,300. And there's been additional spending by other team members and through the church's Amazon business account. The growing needs of our community are why we requested to share the plate this month. Our grant funds are running low. There is a team looking for new grant opportunities, and you'll hear more from them 2 weeks from now. We're also exploring 501c3 nonprofit designation, which might open up partnerships with manufacturers or corporate sponsors. So in closing, I'm going to share the mission statement that the pantry team crafted with the Committee on Ministry last year. We strive toward food justice by sharing nutritious food with those in our community who experience food insecurity, affirming the worth and dignity of all. Thank you.
You can support this vital ministry this month by writing checks to UU Amherst with pantry in the memo line. Or you might put cash in an envelope with pantry written on the outside. And remember, these contributions are in addition to your regular pledge payments. Food insecurity is at an all-time high for families throughout our region. You can make a difference. And if you have the resources, you might consider an ongoing monthly contribution. Hunger doesn't take a day off. And you may also text your gift to 833-987-1968. There's a category there for the pantry, for your pledges, for general gifts to the congregation. Our service is drawing to an end, which means our service to the world is ready to begin. Let me tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. You may have noticed the insert in your order of service today. It's an invitation to participate in the life of our UU principals on each of the next 7 days through the UU holiday celebration of Chalaka. Now, we know we never get everything exact, so if you take more than 7 days, that's okay. This is just one way that this congregation can connect to the larger UU community. Be looking for more opportunities for this larger connection, especially as we move towards the UU General Assembly in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania next June. You can find more information about that on the glass wall in the lobby. Next Saturday is our fundraising event with Santa from 1 to 4. I want to say that this is an all-ages event. It's a holiday party. It is not just for children, it is for everyone. The elves are to arrive at noon, and some will have to help clean up afterwards too. You can find more information about this event in our weekly update or on the flyers in our fellowship hall, the Emerson Room, where we'll convene for coffee and conversation after the service. You can RSVP or volunteer with Diane Tucker. She was out front as you walked in today, but I don't see her right now. The following Saturday, so next Saturday, is it the 17th? That's the Saturday. The 18th? 17th, yeah. We're going to be having a different kind of ministry council meeting from 9 a.m. to noon in the Emerson Room. If you are part of a ministry team, part of the leadership of this congregation, or you would like to be part of a ministry team or the leadership of UU Amherst, please come and see what we're up to. If you're interested, you can see me after service, or you can contact Reverend Michelle over the next 2 weeks. There's additional information about membership and Christmas Eve service on the back of your order of service. If you're interested in active membership, see our connections specialist, Lorraine Marcus. Can you wave, Lorraine? Or our volunteer coordinator and UU UN ambassador, Ellen Muma. It's right there. Please rise, and thank you all for coming today. I hope you enjoyed the service. Please rise in body and spirit as we sing our closing blessing, and then remain standing afterward as we extinguish the chalice. Travel light is the name of our blessing. The words will be on the screen. share a short benediction from the farmer, poet, and activist Wendell Berry. I go among the trees and sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. Then what is afraid of me comes and lives a while in my sight. What it fears in me leaves me, and the fear of me leaves it. It sings, and I hear its song. Then what I am afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear in it leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. After days of labor, mute in my consternations, I hear my song at last, and I sing it. As we sing, the day turns, the trees move. Please join me as I invite Pat Burke to come and help us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, and remember to turn your phones back to active mode. Unless you prefer to remain still, then just leave them off.
All around the world, there are many pretty trees all around the world. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's an oak tree. It's an oak tree. It's an oak tree. It's an oak tree. It's an oak. It's an oak. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's an elm tree. It's an elm tree. It's an elm tree. It's an elm tree. It's an elm. It's an elm. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a birch tree. It's a birch tree. It's a birch tree. It's a birch tree. It's a birch. It's a birch. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a pine tree. It's a pine tree. It's a pine tree. It's a pine tree. It's a pine. It's a pine. There are many pretty trees all around the world. There are many pretty trees all around the world. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a palm tree. It's a palm tree. It's a palm tree. It's a palm tree. It's a palm. It's a palm. There are many pretty trees all around the world. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees all around the world. Here's a pretty tree now. It's a eucalyptus tree. It's a eucalyptus tree. It's a eucalyptus tree. It's a eucalyptus tree. It's a eucalyptus. It's a eucalyptus. There are many pretty trees all around the world. Many pretty trees It's a cedar tree.
It's a cedar tree.
It's a cedar.
It's a cedar.
It's a cedar.
It's a cedar.
It's a cedar.